9 The Hill, WCHL Studios, from the independent voice of UNC Sports, covering everything from Amos to Zwicker. This is Inside Carolina Live. And now the hosts of Inside Carolina Live, Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell.
Hey, y'all, is that my dog up on the roof?
Welcome in Inside Carolina Live. A beautiful, beautiful Saturday morning in Chapel Hill. It is absolutely stunning weather here. Gorgeous! The Tar Heels coming off a tough road win at Clemson, host Florida State at 2 p.m. in the Smith Center, and another one of those games that they need to win, but they cannot afford to lose. I'm your host, Tommy Ashley. Gregory Hall putting us on YouTube Live. Daniel running the board, and my co-host, Joey Powell. What's up, Joey?
Yay.
Yeah, it is. It's been an interesting few games for North Carolina basketball. They're back in the Smith Center. They were once 12-0 in the Smith Center, and then last Saturday happened. But then they go on the road and they grit out a win at Clemson, who I think is a pretty good basketball team. They can play dirty, as we saw earlier this week. And I think there was some of that going on, not to that extent against Carolina, but Carolina had the focus and had the, I guess, the determination not to fall down in Littlejohn. Joey, where is this team going into this Florida State game? This is a segment of games that Carolina can get all of them if we see good Carolina.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I don't think anybody feels any differently about this team they did before the Duke game. You know what I mean? It's more of the same. It's kind of they are consistently inconsistent. They have proven that they can't be trusted, especially against good teams. But I do think you have to recognize the mettle that they've showed against Louisville and against Clemson. I think a lot of fans, because of the rivalry and because the display against Duke last Saturday showed just how much of a divide there is between the talent level of those two teams. And that's frustrating. Like, that's an entirely different conversation. I absolutely see that's a big thing. But to your point, winning on the road against a very scrappy Clemson team, and you mentioned Tom Weidman off the air before we got started, like, they've been scrappy as long as I can remember, even when they weren't good. I mean, Cliff Ellis had teams that would probably rather fight you than make a layup. And that's okay. But North Carolina went into Littlejohn this week at a weird start time. By the way, can we just boo all 6 p.m. weeknight starts from here on out?
That was odd.
That was hot garbage.
And shout out to Sherelle McMillan for still getting it together so we can do the post-game pod. I mean, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. For folks that don't know, Dewey is not in the Eastern time zone.
He is Mountain Time Zone.
Yeah. So that's a 4 p.m. start. But, yeah, you know, I could get to bed early. But other than that, that's a weird time for ACC basketball to start.
Yeah, it was not good. But credit to this team because they came out looking like a plate of absolute urine to start, flatter than anything you've ever seen in your life. And they were bad. They looked bad. They looked listless. There was just no response. And Clemson wasn't making shots either. Clemson looked like they looked equally bad. They just happened to be at home. And this team stuck with it. They stuck with it. And even with Armando Bacot picking up his 5th foul, they closed out a game on the road. And that's something that, you saw it a little bit against Louisville. But I think this Clemson team is tougher than Louisville is, even without Hunter Tyson. It was just refreshing to see. And again, as much as the fan base and we've kind of questioned Hubert some, Hubert Davis called a great play for that last offensive set that North Carolina got the layup on from Brady Manick. And you have to tip your cap to the kids that executed it. I mean, Caleb Love, for all of his erratic play and losing his mind and turning the ball over and all that stuff, he delivered when it mattered. And he made a great decision to dish that ball to a trailing Brady Manick. So there's a lot of good things still to see, and there's also a lot of things that'll give you heartburn and keep you up at night, which goes back to my initial point. This team's not any different than they were a week ago. They still can't be trusted against good opponents. But I do think the more wins they get under their belt, the closer they get to hopefully cementing the chance to play in March.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people talk about backing into a quad one win when Michigan upset Purdue. You know, the bottom line is quad one wins or not. If they win, beat Florida State today, beat Pitt, at Virginia Tech is going to be tough. And then at Duke is, I said it before that Duke game, called flack in the Smith Center. It's as close to impossible as you can get for a sporting event at Duke to end the season.
How did you catch flack for that?
We caught flack for our pre-Duke podcast. I think we were on the beat live, and we talked. I said I didn't think they had a chance, and you know, somebody later said they had to eat crow that we were ultimately right. And I don't want to be right. I just want to tell you what I think.
Sure. Well, you said last week that North Carolina was either going to win or get blown out.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was pretty spot on.
And so, I mean, that game is another one of those. But I don't think wins on the table in Cameron.
Right. Well, that's, again, if you're just recognizing all of the extracurriculars that are going to go into that game, I agree with you. I mean, just and then when you layer in on top of it the talent differential and the depth that Duke has right now, I agree. Just all that to say, I agree.
But there's a lot to happen before that.
Right.
That game can be irrelevant for Carolina's postseason interest if they handle business starting today at 2 o'clock against a Florida State team who I've always liked Leonard Hamilton.
Yeah.
And I've always liked Florida State basketball. They're always pretty tough, but they are decimated by injuries.
Decimated?
Decimated. Is that a word?
Decimated. It's decimated and estimated.
Decimated is destroyed.
No, I like that. We're going to make that a new word. I like that.
Hey, add it to the list. But this is a game that Carolina can get. Carolina should get being at home, but they're going to have to play. And they need to play the last 2 minutes of Clemson game basketball versus the first 38 minutes. And that, as always, we've talked about, starts and ends with Caleb Love's ability to get into the game early.
Yeah.
Not wait, and get in it early, hit some shots. That's the key today. Armando Bacot's going to be good. Armando's got to relax a little bit. We've been talking about it for a couple weeks, and maybe I'm overblowing it, but we saw how Collins plays for Clemson, right? And that's who Bacot stiff-armed to get the flagrant whatever.
He straight up mushed that kid.
And what did Collins do 2 days later? He was Wendell Moore foul, right?
Yeah, he got a little outside of himself.
Yeah, so obviously there's some chippiness going on, but the bottom line is for Carolina that Bacot cannot fall into it. And that'll be the case today because Florida State has no shot if Bacot's dominant.
Yeah, well, something else to think about, too, is Armando Bacot has struggled with guys that are bigger than he is. He struggled a little bit against Boston College, who has, I can't remember that kid's name now, but they've got a legitimate 7-footer that hassled him a little bit. Florida State's going to start 2 kids today that are over 7 foot, 7'1" and 7'2" on their back line. Now, the flip side of that is one of those kids has to guard Brady Manick, and we'll talk to Greg Barnes about that a little bit around 10:40. But Florida State's going to have to chase Brady Manick around, and I think that'll work to North Carolina's favor. But Armando Bacot today has to play big against a guy that is legitimately bigger than he is. And whether that means taking a couple more jump shots, whether that means using the dribble that we've seen him do the last few games effectively, all of those things should absolutely be in his bag today, and I hope that he's able to go get them. Tommy, I want to dip into something that Hubert Davis said in his media availability yesterday, if you'll allow me. He talked specifically about using the freshmen. He was asked about using Dontrez Styles and DeMarco Dunn. And he made statements along the lines of, how much they've grown and how much he appreciates them, and he thinks that they're good players, et cetera, and says that they've earned the right to be on the floor. And I'm going to use a quote here. Dontrez and DeMarco, they have continued to improve and get better on both ends of the floor the entire season. I've said a number of times I can't be happier with them as kids, with their development, and in the unbelievable and outstanding careers that they're going to have here at North Carolina. And I want them out on the floor because they deserve it. It's been earned. Tommy, who controls who plays in a game?
That would be the one Hubert Davis. Now, later in that press conference, he also said whether it's 1 minute or 20 minutes, folks need to come in and do their job and provide support for the starting 5. So will they play more? I think it's possible, but you got to go by what's been going on the first, 24 games of the season. Do they need to play more? I would argue quite yes, especially in Brady Manek's situation where he is tired.
Just gassed.
And I don't care what people say. And if a doctor came and said something, I might listen. But if you run 100 miles every day, and even if you skip a couple days in between them, you're going to wear down. And he is showing signs of wearing down. Now, he's a warrior. He's played hard. He plays his butt off. You got to give him credit for that. But he's getting tired. Yeah, those guys need to play to get some of that tread off those tires for not only Manek but everybody else.
Yep.
Because recovering for a day in the cold tub's not going to take off 600 minutes of action over the past 2 months, 3 months.
No, and you kind of see where I'm going with this, especially in a game like the Duke game where nothing seemed to be working, specifically on the defensive end. North Carolina could not stop anything that Duke wanted to do. And so you end up seeing, what is essentially matador defense in a lot of situations, especially to start the second half. So that's kind of where I come back to put the new kids in and see if just doing something different will help. Put the new kids in and see if just giving them an opportunity might spark something in the other guys that are on the court. And so it was as refreshing as it was to see that comment from Hubert Davis in his press conference yesterday. I'm still a little perplexed as to why those kids aren't playing more, and I think it'll happen today. I hope that it happens today. I hope North Carolina's in a position for it to happen today, but even if it's not, I think you've got to force the issue at this point if you want those kids to really be the sophomores that you're going to need them to be.
So I'm here, by the way, I finally got on the mic, everybody. Don't hold your horses.
That's Gregory Hall, by the way, in case folks did not recognize the baby face. Young face, sorry.
The one time that Hubert Davis did expand the bench was at Wake Forest in the first half. And the defensive issues when the bench came onto the floor, when it was not just one guy, it was multiple guys on the court, they played like 8 minutes in the first half. The defensive issues were astronomical for the whole team, but mainly for the bench. And that's what Hubert said afterwards. He's like, look, I tried to get him out there, but they were too much of a defensive liability, which is why they didn't play in the second half. So with him saying yesterday that they've earned the right, he said earlier in the season to get playing time is to show that you earned it in practice. So obviously they've changed, whether habits, abilities, or play, skill level, whatever, in practice for him to say that to us. Because he used to just say, look, they're not playing because they haven't earned it in practice. So that's the first change. And then to actually see it for more than just a few minutes, it has to be on the defensive end. And that's what he said in preseason for the starters. And obviously that was different because that never actually happened as far as defensive abilities, like who's starting. But for the bench, it really has been, and he's been pretty uniform with that. If you're a liability on defense, you're coming out.
Don't play them both at the same time. That's my answer. And again, I didn't mean to take us into a place to where we're second guessing who plays when at what time. But to your point, don't put them in at the same time. Like run, put Styles out there with everybody else except for Manek, or put Puff out there. Sub them in one time where they've got some support around them. They've got some leaders around them to keep them calm, to look to. But run DeMarco out there when Caleb needs a break. Those times, and I've said it before on the show, there are times where Caleb, it looks like he just kind of he gets into his own head and starts kind of going on this whirling dervish, crackhead spree where he just loses his mind for the better part of 2 minutes. Pull in there, let DeMarco go in, just let Caleb see some things, but put the young guys in with older guys around them. I don't think it needs to be platooned in a blue and white squad, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure, I agree.
Tommy didn't like my crackhead reference. I apologize.
No, I didn't like that. But, it's February 11th or whatever. What's the date? February 12th. And this is the 25th game of the season. I don't necessarily think it's time to start experimenting getting guys in, but I agree that they need to get in. And you can't say they deserve it And they hear that. And everybody else hears that.
And then they come out and not play today?
And then they don't play.
Yeah, that's my issue. It's you can't, and Hubert's done it in the past, and
Right.
hopefully he didn't do it yesterday, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, if you tell me something, I'm going to expect you to do it. But at any rate, they've got a game today. You were talking about Florida State. Florida State on the roster's got 4 7-footers.
Isn't that insane?
That is
you know, it's something else, and I love where you're going with this. Something else I love. What does Florida State always have?
Athletic dudes. Yeah.
I mean, even regardless of who they're, and they're missing quite a few guys due to injury today, but Caleb Mills, the transfer from Houston, is still a baller. I mean, they're going to put some dudes on the court today. So this isn't one of those things where North Carolina can just sleepwalk in.
And they're one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the ACC because of their size. But obviously with offensive rebounding, it's more than just size. You have to actually crash and not try to get back in transition. So that'll be interesting to watch because, what game was it that UNC just got killed on the offensive boards this season? I'm blanking, but it happened. Everyone was like, man, so this...
They got destroyed by Duke on the boards.
Yeah, but it was earlier in the season. I don't remember, but everyone was like, man, is this what it feels like to
Tennessee.
be? Oh, yeah. So
Tennessee wore them out on the glass.
Everyone was like, man, is this what it feels like to be what we were doing to teams for the last decade? So that'll be something to watch before we get into we'll get into the preview later, but just a little reference there since you brought up Florida State. They're a really good offensive rebounding team.
And Hamilton plays a lot of guys. I mean, he's got a pile of looking at the roster, they've got almost 10 guys averaging more than 10 minutes a game.
They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys on KenPom that are using at least 16% of possessions when they're on the court. So that is a significant number.
Yeah,
it's like the
UNC
opposite of what
doesn't
Hubert
even
Davis
play
has right
10
now.
people.
This is one of those games where you're going to see the deepest bench that you'll see in the conference versus the shortest bench in the conference. And if it's a physical game, which it's going to be, you got Roger Ayers and his crew is on it. So you're going to have a physical game, and you're likely to have a lot of foul calls. Depth is going to be something to watch today.
Yeah.
And like Gregory said, we'll talk more about it later, but get these guys in somehow without messing up the flow that this team's somewhat in.
You mentioned fouls. One of the things from the Clemson game that I was extremely impressed with, and I know Armando eventually fouled out, but when he came in with about 7 minutes to play with 4 fouls, he didn't foul out until the minute mark, and he played 6 minutes of really good defense without fouling.
That's better to move.
Yeah, and I know, it's why doesn't he do that the whole game? It's because you can't be as aggressive, you can't be as physical and whatnot, but, he did extremely well, and I feel like he might need to do that to start so he can get his second foul maybe at the end of the first half or early in the second half rather than the first 5 minutes of the game. But he's capable of it, and he's good at it.
Yeah, the thing is you got to be smart, right? You can't if you're beat, and this is what sort of was irritating when he picked up his first against Clemson. I think it was against Clemson. You're beat. Give him the layup.
Let him go.
Yeah, there's no point. And I don't care what people say. It's not a foul. It's a bad call. They're going to call you sliding down the back of somebody shooting a layup every time. And they're going to call you bumping a guy on a closeout every time.
Most of the time, if you're reaching in that position, they're going to call it whether you touch them or not because it looks bad.
Just don't do it. And that is what Baycott did against Clemson is you got 4, give up the points. I said it before that game.
Make them make a shot.
Make them make a shot over somebody that's 6'10", 6'11", but you can also get it back. You cannot get that foul back. It's going to be a big deal today.
Well, we hope this show is a big deal today. We're going to have George Lynch on right after this break. Former teammate of Coach Hubert Davis, but also was involved and was instrumental in one of the biggest North Carolina-Florida State games in history. So we'll talk to him a little bit after this break. We got Greg Barnes in segment 3, just talking about everything that's going on around Carolina basketball and what might help them moving forward. We'll talk to Don Callahan, top of the second hour, about football recruiting as the UNC football staff is taking shape, but they're starting to really draw out their big board for what the 2023 class needs to look like. So we'll talk to Don. All that stuff coming up. Make sure to get your questions in on Twitter or on the message boards or in the YouTube chat. The winner gets a $50 Johnny T-shirt gift card. We'll be right back with George Lynch after this break on Inside Carolina Live, 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
This is Officer Ferraro from the Carborough Police Department, reminding you to make locking your vehicles and taking any valuables inside your home a part of your nightly routine. Make sure you bring any extra key fobs inside your home as well. You work hard for your things. Don't let someone else take them away. If you see something suspicious or need police assistance of any kind, immediately call 911. Thank you 97.9 The Hill for caring about our community, and we hope everyone stays Carrboro safe.
Tired of paying too much for insurance that just doesn't fit your needs? At All About Insurance, we shop your insurance with multiple carriers to get the best deal for you. Nationwide, AAA, Travelers, The Hartford, auto owners, and more. All About Insurance has got you covered whether you need auto, home, life, health, business, or renter's insurance. We can even cover your boat and motorcycle. Come see us in Chapel Hill at 1289 Fordham Boulevard. Call 919-933-4000 or visit allaboutinsurance.com. One call, we can shop them all. We know all about insurance, so you don't have to.
The layered design approach of the all-new Sheraton Chapel Hill balances a sense of timelessness with a fresh and modern feel, creating an environment where guests feel comfortable and at ease, whether working or relaxing in the town square lobby. New studios provide space from informal meetings to private dining for small gatherings. The soundproof booths are perfect for focused thinking or spontaneous video calls with family, friends, or coworkers. Found in the lobby, these studios offer unexpected privacy when you need it. Check out the Sheraton Chapel Hill today.
Does this sound familiar?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Your commercial broker puts a sign in the ground at your property, sits back, and waits for the phone to ring. That's commercial real estate the old way. Don't settle. You deserve the bold way. Bold Commercial Real Estate's hands-on hustle leverages our 20 years of Orange and Chatham real estate experience to maximize your investment. BoldCRE.com.
I am here with Mark Engels of Seagrows Insurance, which handles multiple lines of coverage for your business. Mark, how does that work?
The Seagrows agency is now an independent agency, so what that means for you as a business owner is it puts you in a leverage position to negotiate premium rates and to protect the proper lines of business income that you do have when it comes time for renewals.
To find out if your business is covered in all the right ways, go to SeagrowsInsurance.com, insuring what matters to North Carolina.
Chapel Hill loves to support local business and is filled with amazing shopping and dining centers. This month, we highlight Village Plaza, located at the corner of South Elliott Road and East Franklin Street in the heart of the Blue Hill District. Village Plaza is anchored by Whole Foods Market, and after a recent large-scale renovation, has many new shopping and dining experiences awaiting your visit. Come see what's new at Village Plaza, Chapel Hill's preeminent shopping center.
You're listening to Inside Carolina Live with Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports.
Here I am, slowing down Atlantic Avenue with the sunlight in my eyes.
Little Atlantic Avenue bump back.
Man, I'm glad I got that second cup of coffee.
Feeling it. Oh, man, that's some good Saturday morning music for you right there. Appreciate you guys listening to Inside Carolina Live. I am Joey Powell. With me, Tommy Ashley. No Coffee Daniel running the board. Gregory Hall is our technical advisor. Can we call him that? Technical advisor?
No,
technical director?
He's one of the stars of the show.
Well, I'm trying to keep his head in a manageable size, Tommy.
Gregory's good peeps. He's got big plans this weekend. I'm just trying to piggyback on those big plans.
I'm saying, when does the private jet fire up?
Yeah, really.
Tommy and I can be your porters. Do you know what a porter is?
You carry my bags.
There you go. Tommy and I can be. See, he knows what a porter is.
Yeah, you tell
can't hide money.
Is he bougie?
You can't hide money.
Gregory Hall, upper crust Gregory. That's his new name.
Lowercase upper crust. All right,
so oatmeal out of a Tupperware.
Seriously, man, my man makes his oatmeal a day early. I mean, that's a world that I can't live in. But appreciate you guys joining us. Big day today. Tar Heels hosting a Florida State team that has lost 5 in a row, which is hard to believe because this team won the ACC just 2 years ago, and I recognize that Leonard Hamilton has embraced the one and done mentality better than some. You could argue he's done it better than North Carolina has, but they've just been absolutely, to quote Tommy, decimated with injuries this year, and they're struggling to kind of put things together. All that said, North Carolina absolutely cannot overlook their opponent today. You know, you want to talk about the Tar Heels making a postseason run, getting a bid to the NCAA tournament, beat who's in front of you. beat who's on the court with you that day. Come out fired up instead of coming out flat. Come out with your hair on fire. Execute. Be determined, and then see what happens. Let everything else fall where it may, but you've got to at least be prepared for who's coming out of that other tunnel when the game starts.
Control what you can control, and Carolina's had trouble controlling that aspect of it. You can't control the officials. You can't control the opponents. You got to come out and bring it, to your point, every single time they step on the floor, and it needs to start from the second the ball is jumped.
Well, Florida State's lost 5 games in a row, right?
Yes.
But their last 2 ACC wins are
Miami
against
and
Duke and
Duke.
Miami. So it's like, yeah, they're struggling right now. And I mean, anytime you point to losses to Georgia Tech and Pittsburgh, you're like, oof, that's not great. And they're 6-7 in a bad conference, also not great. But it's just like, it's one of those teams where, which UNC has not been, right? But they're like, this is a normal college basketball team that can beat anyone and lose to anyone. Whereas UNC beats who they should beat and loses who they should lose to, which is like not very normal in college basketball. I mean, look at Purdue getting destroyed by Michigan, right?
That was
to give UNC a quad 1 win. And if Clemson wins today, UNC can get a second quad 1 win, which they would get 2 quad 1 wins without having to actually play against their opponent, which is kind of funny, but you know.
Yeah, we woke up on Friday morning with a quad 1 win. Hadn't even done anything. That's the way you do it.
You know what's interesting? When was the last time Florida State won in the Smith Center?
I don't know. I can look at it.
I've got it right here. I don't ask questions I don't know the answers to.
Sometimes you do.
Well, it depends. February 24th, 2010, last time.
Wow. Has it been that long?
That's hard to believe. As good as Florida State's been.
How
As good as they've been.
The way the ACC schedules are today, I don't know how many times they've played since
I guess you
then,
play
but
everyone
that's still,
once, right?
12 years is a long time for that Florida State team.
Yeah.
We talked about the 93 game. That's the one everybody remembers.
Well, not everybody.
Well, everybody that's over the age of...
People that are aware that the world existed prior to their existence.
Hey, I can say it didn't. I mean, the world started in 1971 as far as I'm concerned.
Why are you starting when you were 12 years old?
Yeah.
Got him.
Well, you did. That's fine.
So anyway, all that talk, and you guys did a great job of laying this out on the beat this week, but all the talk about what North Carolina needs to do to get into the tournament, just beat who's across from you. I mean, it's that simple. The beautiful part is usually this time of year you start worrying about, to rip you off, Tommy, games that you can't control. North Carolina is firmly in control of their own destiny. You beat who is across from you, and you're most likely going to get in the tournament. I just can't see to make it any simpler than that. You beat who's across from you, you get into the NCAA tournament. Next question.
You want to give me, I'll tell you something else, Gregory. You picking on my age. Guess what year I was in college when the 93 Florida State game happened?
Junior.
That was my senior year.
Devastating. All right, because you were a senior when they won the national championship.
Victory lap.
That's
a hell of a spring for you, man.
I was a freshman when they won the national championship.
And you know who was not in the Smith Center during that Florida State 93 game? This guy. You know what else happened during that game? Kicked a hole in the bathroom door in the apartment. Because they were down
North Carolina
21.
was getting boat raced early. Yeah.
That moment is when I realized that games are long. Don't break stuff.
So what you ended up getting was...
At least it was a real basketball game, unlike Joel Berry, who broke his hand in a fake basketball
I've probably
game.
done that more. I haven't broken a bone in video games.
Y'all
but
remember that?
Yeah, it cost him time over like 2K or whatever.
Yeah.
What's
Man,
that?
I'm not even that dumb.
You figure out when you start paying for stuff, you stop breaking. And if you don't, then you've got an issue.
Now, see, that's the wisdom that our listeners are here for. When you pay for stuff, you break less.
Unless you have porters, and then you don't really care.
Well, and again, that's a world that we don't live in. So something I noticed at the end of the Clemson game the other night, guys, and this is one heck of a development for North Carolina. We've alluded to it, but now we're actually seeing it in practice. Do you know why the end of game play worked the other night?
Because 50+% of practice is situational practice?
Yes, but that's not what I'm going for. Tommy, I'll let you take a stab at it. Do you know why that end of game play design worked the other night?
Because Caleb Love executed the play?
Also true.
With this?
Leaky Black was guarded. So the ideal help in that situation, if you go back and watch the film, You know what film is, Gregory? If you go back and watch the video,
yes.
Leaky Black's man stayed with him because Leaky had actually made some jumpers and has been making corner jumpers.
He didn't help.
He did not sag down to help, which would have stopped Caleb Love's drive. So the reason I bring that up is we've talked about kind of getting things out of Leaky Black as it being found money for this team. Now you're seeing other teams have to game plan for him. He could not help off of Leaky because it would have potentially left Leaky Black open for a corner three that he's proven as of the last 3 weeks that he can hit. That's absolutely huge for this North Carolina offense as far as how many different options they have off of design plays.
Let me ask a question, and this came from On the Beat as well, and I caught some text messages afterwards saying that we were ridiculous. What do we think about Isaiah Lucas's comment that Leaky is the team MVP? MVP, sorry.
So, I mean, I was kind of thinking about this. Leaky's not the guy that gets this team going, but I do think he can be and is the guy at times, and most of the time, that keeps the team going. So I think depending on your definition of team MVP and value to a team, I think there is an argument for it, yes.
I think there's an argument.
True glue guy.
I think there's an argument around that, but I don't know that you could ever say that a glue guy is the most it brings the biggest value to the team. That's where, you know, I say, is Leaky replaceable? Yes, most likely.
Yeah.
And that's, again, this is not a slight on him, but if you're comparing him as to who's the most valuable player on the team, you put Leaky against a guy like, compare him against Armando or Caleb or even R.J. Davis. I think those guys are less replaceable than Leaky is. Yeah, which is why I can't go with the argument. I can see where it can be made, but I can't take that step.
He's still the fifth most important starter, in my opinion. Maybe
really?
Fourth.
Here's the deal.
But I get it.
Here's the deal why he's so important. He's a senior. He's been around forever. The guys follow, whether they say it or not, they look to the older people, and this is life advice for you too, Gregory. They look at older people and see how they behave and how they act and how they carry themselves, and they act accordingly when they're allowed to or when they can do that. And so when Leaky's not engaged, when Leaky's floating out on the wing doing nothing, guys tend to follow that. Hey, this guy's a senior. He's played 100-plus ball games at Carolina. He's not doing it. Do I have to do it? Why should I do it? If he's not doing it and he's playing big minutes, this last month he has been fully engaged. We heard the story. We've heard the Jackie Manuel story and all that stuff, but he has done his part. And while Carolina still hadn't beaten really good teams, they've won a couple games in this stretch that they would not have won a month ago.
I agree.
And I think it's a big part in that Leaky is showing up, going to work, doing it, making plays, and those guys like R.J. Davis, like Caleb Love, whoever else. Manick's going to do his thing anyway. He's a senior. Baycott's going to do his thing anyway. But I think Leaky's ability to get involved and make a difference, a positive difference, and not just be a guy on the court, has paid dividends for the entire team.
Sure. I love
That's
the argument.
why I think you could make an argument that he's the team MVP. We can talk about most important, most outstanding, all the different things, but I think without Leaky's progression in the last month, this team's, we're not talking about the tournament because they don't beat Clemson. They don't beat Louisville. That's my view.
Sure.
So one of the things I was hoping we'd be able to discuss with George Lynch, and I don't think that we're going to get him today. So my apologies on that. But one of the things I want to ask about George Lynch was he was notorious for being saddled with guarding bigger guys, right? That was something where he always did, and I'm pretty sure he's still UNC's all-time leader in steals. But something that you've seen Leaky do and do effectively has been guarding guys that are bigger than he was. I mean, when he slid over to guard Paolo Banchero last week, Banchero was pretty much neutralized, except for a couple times where Leaky got caught in the switch. But I would just love to see the light that's gone off for Leaky on offense, which has been him slashing to the basket. Has been him going to get layups instead of pulling up for a foot on the line jumper. Wanting to see that for Caleb Love. And the beautiful part is, even if Caleb Love's not hitting a mid-range jump shot, if he gets to the rim, he's most likely going to get fouled, and he's a good free throw shooter. I would love to see that light come on for Caleb, because I think that's the kind of next step thing that can help this team potentially compete with teams that are better than they are.
Part of that, for that to happen, and we talked about this on Thursday as well, is that Caleb, when he drives, needs to have multiple options in his head of what can happen.
Other than putting his head down and just trying to figure it out on the fly?
Right. He's either driving to kick or he's driving to score, and that's it. And not at the same time. Like, it doesn't look like he has those same options. But that last play to Clemson is the perfect example. He had 3 options, knowing what he could do. If he drives and gets help, he kicks it to either Leaky or Kerwin to his right. Mm-hmm. If he drives and there's no help defense, he can go up for the layup. But if your guy's on his back, which he was, look for a cutting Manic. And those were his 3 things. And the first, didn't help off of Leaky and Kerwin, so that option was denied. Guy was on his back, so he couldn't go up for the layup.
Which, by the way, is great awareness. Like, that's
right.
that's heady awareness that you like to see from a guy that has the ball in his hands.
And he can even explain it to us afterwards. He literally said, he's like, I felt him on my back, so I couldn't go up. And then option number 3, as a point guard, look for help, and that came to Manic. But that doesn't happen enough for Caleb, which is why when we got the question about why doesn't Caleb drive more, that's why. And if he can do that 80% of the time when he drives, and I get it, turnovers happen because guys make good defensive plays and things don't happen the way you want them to. I understand that. You're still playing against other human beings that are trying to stop you. But that needs to happen for him to do what you just said. He needs to have multiple ideas in his head of what can happen, and I don't really think he does most of the time.
I kind of push back against that a little bit, because a lot of his drives, especially early in the season, it didn't look like he knew what he wanted to do.
You mean like he just put his head down and was like, I'm going to the rim?
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Right, well, that's kind of what I mean when he's just putting his head down and trying to go score. That's why he's driving.
Yeah, he was, am I going to shoot him on score? I'd like to see.
That's even worse than what I said.
I'd like to see, he's figured it out somewhat. He still has too many of the blackout moments we've talked about. But, RJ, 90% of the time, if RJ is driving, he's going to score, whether a guy's on him or not. But at any rate, there's still time for them to figure it out. They just need to figure it out before the 2-minute, under 2-minute timeout, under 4-minute timeout, media timeout for them to do it. What's up, Joey? You were wringing your hand.
Oh, no, I was trying to let you guys know we got to hit a break.
Yeah, but right before.
Do we have to?
Right before, this made me laugh. Sean Crowley in the chat said, Caleb drives like a 15-year-old without a license sometimes, as Bill Raftery would say, out of control, Vern.
Out of control, Vern.
That's a great way to put it.
Double order. It's a great way. I love that. I had to point that out.
So shout out to Sean Crowley.
One thing we need to agree not to do on this show is we cannot mimic the greats. And Raph is a great.
I love Raph.
So don't stick your poor imitation in my brain, so I remember that.
Wow.
I don't mean to be mean.
Wow, harsh. So
I need 3 minutes to recover.
Let's take a commercial break so that Gregory can lick his wounds. We'll be right back with Greg Barnes. You're listening to 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
Hello, friends. This is Mark Pons of Chapel Hill Tire. With full-service auto repair for all domestic and import models, let Chapel Hill Tire be your partner for road tripping to the beach and mountains. To make your car repair experience painless, we continue to offer free pickup and delivery service. Visit the chapelhilltire.com appointment scheduler. Choose pickup and delivery. With 9 locations now serving the Triangle, Chapel Hill Tire wants to help you drive happy, Chapel Hill.
Hello, Tar Heel fans. I'm Robbie Oakes, Managing Director of CIMG Residential Mortgage. As a Chapel Hill native and a UNC grad, I am proud to lead Chapel Hill and Durham's #1 mortgage lending team, so we can help you buy or refinance here locally or anywhere from the mountains to the coast. Last year, my team helped 1,500 North Carolina families refinance or buy the home of their dreams. Find out how today. Visit CIMGINC.com for details. CIMG, lending on a first-name basis. Go Heels.
Hey, it's Tommy Ashley from InsideCarolina.com, and I always shop at Johnny T-Shirt. A Franklin Street tradition since 1983, Johnny T-Shirt has the best selection of Tar Heel gear, from jerseys to T-shirts to hats, even Carolina face coverings. Help Inside Carolina support this great family and alumni-owned business and get all your Tar Heel gear at Johnny T-Shirt, 128 East Franklin Street in downtown Chapel Hill, or shop online and get your Tar Heel merchandise delivered to your doorstep with JohnnyT-Shirt.com.
Come meet us at the new Flying Biscuit Cafe, located in University Place next to Silver Spot Cinema. We have a 25-year history of serving the South flavorful comfort food. Join us for Chapel Hill's best shrimp and grits, biscuits with cranberry apple butter, creamy, dreamy grits, and many more regionally inspired dishes. Bring the whole family. There's something for everyone on our extensive menu. We serve breakfast, brunch, and lunch all day with a Southern twist. Flying Biscuit Cafe, now open. Visit us at flyingbiscuit.com.
Emerge Pediatric Therapy wants to take a minute for moms and dads. At Emerge Pediatric Therapy, their mission is to enhance the lives of the children they serve and the families who love them by providing a fun, nurturing, and supportive therapeutic environment. They're committing to making learning tough skills fun. Here's Executive Director Brittany Winslow with more.
Learning to write is a skill that many children struggle with, especially when letter formation may not be explicitly taught. Even though we are doing more and more typing these days, learning to write letters manually develops stronger connections to learning than simply using a keyboard. At Emerge Pediatric Therapy, we incorporate movement and play into learning pre-writing and handwriting skills. The trapeze, spray bottles, and Legos are just a few fun tools we can use to get your kid writing in no time.
Take a Minute for Moms and Dads has been made possible by Emerge Pediatric Therapy, creating confident kids through customized therapy with offices in Durham and Cary. Online at trustemerge.com.
You're listening to Inside Carolina Live with Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports.
If you want to live.
Little Peter Tosh, Steppin' Razor for you. I swear, man, it's hard to hear the bump music that we have for the show and not just feel life and feel good about things and be happy.
It's nice out. You can go get you some sun and really get the rays going.
Man,
I want to petition CHL just to push this 10 feet.
Get us a porch.
Get a garage. We'll go in.
Yeah, and that could be that's your job, Daniel. When you take over the building, we're going out there. We're going to sit out there and do the show.
We did it the first football game. What's that?
Oh, over at the at Old East Tavern.
Yeah,
like the big garage patio
nice.
setup. That was pretty strong.
I was at VT.
So if either Kenny or Aubrey are listening, blow out the window of the studio and get us some garage doors and a patio, and then all will be right with the world. And I know that things are going to be right with the world when Greg Barnes shows up.
Ain't nothing but a G-thing, baby.
GB, how you feeling, man?
I'm doing good, guys. How about yourself?
Man, if I was any better, I would be you. And
that line.
Appreciate you joining Tommy and lowercase G and I. We talked a little bit earlier about things that Hubert Davis said in his press availability yesterday. How can he get the young guys involved? He talked about how they've earned it. I think the fans are clamoring for it, especially when the starters aren't really engaged, aren't really producing. How can he get these young guys involved?
Well, look, I think there's a little bit of a disconnect. I think there's some of the fan base that thinks that Hubert Davis wants to get the guys involved more than they are. And so they kind of think that he's saying one thing and means another. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think Hubert is praising these guys for their work, but at the same time, they're playing as much as they need to play. And I think that is part of the process of kind of getting these guys some opportunities, letting them learn, and then teaching them off those moments. As we've talked about before, with the way that he handled rotations back in November and December, and at that point in time, you had guys like Dawson Garcia and Anthony Harris in the mix. There just wasn't many minutes available for some of these guys in accordance with what Hubert wanted to do. And so now, because you need them more, they don't really have enough reps, enough opportunities to be somebody that he can really count on. And so they're going to play a little bit, but I don't think their minutes are going to improve dramatically. I mean, we're what, 4 weeks away from the ACC tournament? So you may see them play more in games that aren't competitive, but I don't expect to see much of a change in how this rotation plays out.
We're talking about rotations, and we mentioned it a second ago. Kind of a found money scenario for this team has been what offense they've been able to get out of Leaky Black. And we saw it at the last offensive set for North Carolina when they took the lead off of Caleb Love's drive and dished to Brady Manick, that Clemson did not rotate off to help. They stayed on Leaky in the corner. How much of an advantage is that going to be for this Tar Heel team down the stretch to have somebody that, even if he's not scoring more than 5 points a game, now is no longer on self-check like he was for a good portion of the season? How much of an advantage is that going to be for the squad?
Well, yeah, just go back, 2.5 weeks ago when Virginia Tech had their 6-foot point guard playing about 10 feet off of Leaky when he was in the corner. To now we're talking about Carolina is able to win a game because Clemson doesn't want Leaky getting a good look from the corner. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, that's one of the wilder things that I can think of in recent memory. But props for Leaky, stepping up when he was challenged and taking advantage. And he's not only been sufficient, he's been actually really good. And, yeah, that changes things dramatically because one thing that you've seen is that because his confidence level has really elevated on the offensive end, I mean, he is feeling it defensively. I mean, he was great defensively in Clemson. He's been that way the last couple games. I mean, he was that way against Duke. They just didn't have enough of it. And so, there's guys that have stepped up. We talked about this the other night in the On the Beat podcast. But Armando Bacot's been fantastic. Brady Manick's been really good offensively, and now Leaky's emerging. So you've got three guys that are playing at a very high level, and that's going to have to continue for North Carolina to make the NCAA tournament.
Greg, we frame Leaky's progress as what it does for defenses. I said earlier in the show I thought his progress and getting better and getting more involved has been helpful to his younger teammates as well. Your thoughts on that aspect of Leaky really showing up in the last month?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that confidence thing. And Leaky's not a very talkative leader. That's just not how he is. But he does lead with his actions, and he leads by how hard he works, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So this team needed somebody to really step up. Armando, I think, has emerged a little bit, but we all know Armando can be temperamental at times. And if things aren't going well for him, he gets a little frustrated and a little bit detached. And you can't have that in pressure situations. Brady brings some of that, but he's also new to the program. So I think Leaky has kind of stepped into that void, which is very, very critical for this team, especially, as you said, for the younger guys who need to be settled down. I think he's played a pretty big role for them, especially in those games at Louisville and at Clemson.
Greg, Brady's the same way as far as you bring up temperamental, and Hubert's talked about the emotion and passion that he has. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but as far as showing passion and emotion, but you can tell every time he misses a shot, he shakes his head at himself. He's tougher on himself than I think anybody on this team, but then obviously his effort and his work ethic tell a different story as far as being engaged for the entire time. But Brady's the same way.
Yeah, he is. But your last point there, I think is what's key. If a guy's out there busting his tail and he's playing as hard as he can every single play, you're okay if there's a little bit of emotion that kind of gets out of control. You would much rather have that than guys you're like, come on, let's get with it. Let's match the intensity of our teammates and our opponent, because we've seen that a lot this year. And so, none of these guys are perfect by any stretch. But I think considering what this team did in some of those games where they just were shell-shocked from the get-go and were unable to match intensity, you would much rather have a guy like Brady. I mean, look at the Duke game. He was the only person that gave North Carolina a chance in the opening 10 minutes, and that's why they were able to make it respectable at halftime.
Greg, how does Carolina approach this Florida State game? Clearly they're wounded, but Gregory mentioned earlier they've lost 5 straight, but the games before that they beat Miami and Duke. Carolina can't let down. Your thoughts on how they approach Florida State's size and athletic ability, because they've struggled against both this season.
Yeah, Leonard Hamilton, if he does anything, he recruits size very well. Florida State is down 3 starters from their squad that started the team, and these are all veteran guys. I mean, Malik Osborne, Anthony Polite, those are seniors that were poised to have really good years. And then you have a backup center comes in, and he gets hurt. So now you're basically with Butler, who's a first-year guy. He's your third-string center starting today. And that's kind of where Leonard Hamilton's at. But they do have length. I mean, Butler, I think, 7'1". And then you got veteran guys like Raekwon Evans, who's been around a while. Caleb Mills is a very talented guard, transferred over from Houston. So they've got some really good pieces. They're just very limited just due to depth and all the experience that's on the sideline. So I think it's really important for North Carolina to not overlook that and say, hey, you know what? These guys are wounded. We don't have to have our A game. We're at home. We'll be good, because that's how they can lose. There are still playmakers on the Seminoles team. I mean, they've won 4 games by 1 point this year. And I think that leads the nation. So they've won some of these gritty games that Carolina has played in recently. So Carolina just has to make sure they match their opponent's intensity. I know we talk about that pretty much every week. But if they do that, I think Carolina just has too many weapons and can score too many points for Florida State to match.
We're speaking with Greg Barnes here on Inside Carolina Live. Greg, someone asked, can this team successfully space out Florida State and get these 7-footers on the perimeter and actually play a true 4-out, 1-in to kind of take advantage of Florida State's size and bring them out? Do you think that team can be UNC can be successful at that today?
I think Brady being on the perimeter makes things a little bit more challenging. But Butler, I believe, 7'1". So I think Florida State will be okay defensively. If they do anything well during Leonard Hamilton's time in Tallahassee, is play good defense. So they'll be gritty. I mean, they're not great this year because they were missing some key pieces. But I think really where North Carolina can have success is if they're good defensively. And so you've got to score enough points, and that will put a ton of pressure on Florida State to be able to score as well. And so Carolina doesn't have to be great offensively. They need to be good, but then they really need to lock down defensively. And if they can do that, that gives them a chance to make this one of those games where it gets out of hand midway through the second half.
Greg Barnes coming in with the heat, talking about games could get out of hand. One thing about Florida State is, despite the injuries, their guards are all 6'4", 6'5", and 6'7". Grown. Big. And R.J. Davis will clearly play 30, 35 minutes for Carolina, Greg. Who does Hubert Davis match him with? I mean, it's tough for a 6-foot guard to have to guard somebody 6'5" and 6'6", especially when Carolina doesn't have a true rim protector other than Baycott. What's the defensive assignments here?
That's a great question, Tom. I mean, last week I would have assumed that Davis would have been on Dawes. And that's not what Hubert did. And Hubert said, you know what? We're going to put Leaky on their point guard, and we're going to pressure him basically the length of the court. And it worked. It was very successful. So because we saw that, you would assume that RJ will be on Mills just because Mills is probably the smallest of those guards, and he's not a big guy. He's kind of slim. But it would not surprise me at all to see Leaky on Mills just because he is the engine that makes them go right now. So I think it's a great question, and that's probably one when you've got a lockdown guy like Leaky who's playing so well defensively. You almost have to put him on the opposing team's best player, even if there is a significant size disadvantage. Now, you don't want RJ on Evans because Evans is kind of a thicker guy, so maybe you put Love on him. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see exactly how the coaching staff decides to handle that.
We're talking with Greg Barnes here on Inside Carolina Live. Greg, last question before we let you go and get back to your Saturday. With the news finally becoming official that Dawson Garcia would not be back this season, how big has Brady Manick's transfer to North Carolina been? I mean, not only has he hit the game winner against Clemson, he was the only real consistent offense against Duke. He's just been a real breath of fresh air and experience that this roster needs. Can you imagine what this season would look like without a guy like Brady Manick playing for this team?
No, I certainly cannot. And I always go back to, I believe it was after the Asheville game, when he lit into the team. And I think at that point in time, the team was probably really down on itself because it came off those games in Connecticut and didn't even look good against Asheville. And you're like, uh-oh. And Brady really said, look, I didn't come here for this. Like, this is not Carolina basketball that I know and love, right? And I think he's had a few moments like that throughout the season. And while he's not a guy that's been around the program for a long time, he is a veteran college basketball player. And so he understands what leadership looks like. He understands what teamwork looks like. And because of that, I think he's played a big leadership role, whether or not he knows it. And I think that's been critical. Add to that the fact that Hubert Davis said earlier in the year that he may be the best shooting big man in the country. Well, he's probably right, because Brady has been just fantastic from the perimeter and has really kind of given North Carolina fans and I think recruits an understanding of what Hubert wants this program, this offense to look like in the years to come. So I think he's just been a critical addition. And as you say, now that Dawson is gone, they're going to have to lean on him a lot, and he's going to have to play some fives. So he's got some interesting challenges ahead as well.
It'll be interesting to see how Hubert Davis uses Manic's ability to stretch the floor against both of those guys that are over 7 foot today for Florida State. You think? Sorry, that was to you. Did we lose you, Greg?
No, I'm here.
No, that's all right. I was throwing that to you. I wanted you to comment quickly about how Brady Manic might be able to stretch Florida State's true 7-footers to guarding him on the perimeter today.
Yeah, I think because some of the length that Florida State does have, and they got some guys that are 6'9", so they may not play both 7-footers. They have occasionally. I don't think you'll see that today, and I think they'll put one of those power forwards that is a little more agile on him. So it'll be an advantage for Carolina, but maybe not so much as if it was Butler, who's just a big lumbering guy.
Did UNC cover -8.5, Greg?
Yes, I do.
Oh, all right. Well, that's Greg Barnes leaving us with some hot fire today. Greg, we appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you sometime, probably next week if you're available.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
That's Greg Barnes, lead writer for Inside Carolina, InsideCarolina.com. We appreciate him joining us here on Inside Carolina Live. Tommy Ashley's over there. Gregory Hall is contributing to the show, but also handling our technical direction. And No Coffee Daniel is on the board, making sure that we, stay on the air, even when I throw questions out that weren't good questions and our guests can't hear them. We'll be right back after this break to talk more with Don Callahan about UNC football recruiting on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
Looking to start a new career and join a winning team? Hendrick South Point Auto Mall is hiring. We are recruiting now for several customer care representatives. Salary and bonus available. No prior experience necessary. The candidate needs to be a team player who must perform well under pressure with a positive attitude. Our state-of-the-art facility offers a fantastic work environment and great benefits. Apply online or call Hendrick South Point Auto Mall today to set up an interview. 984-287-5474.
Hi, I'm Jamie Sanchez, and I own Epilogue Books with my amazing partner Miranda. We are wanderers and wanderers who love sharing food, coffee, and stories with the community. Epilogue is a place where all are welcome to come find a book while enjoying local craft brews, a glass of wine, or churros and a cup of chocolate. Come cultivate new ideas, learn old ones, or escape into the welcoming atmosphere that books, chocolate, and coffee all provide. We hope you'll stop by and see us on Franklin Street, or visit online at epiloguebookcafe.com.
George Costanza here. I worry a lot about shrinkage, specifically shrinkage in my portfolio. I spent several years as a successful architect at Vandelay Industries, and I don't want to lose that money that I've saved. I have big travel plans, you know? It's going to be the summer of George. If you also worry about shrinkage, you should call John Stillman at Rosewood Wealth Management. Tell him Costanza sent you.
George Costanza is not a real person and therefore was not compensated for this endorsement. However, Carolina Wealth Stewards doing business as Rosewood Wealth Management is a real registered investment advisor with the state of North Carolina.
I'm Ryan Stewart from Trinsic Residential Group, the firm behind the new Aura Chapel Hill development. Central to our vision is the importance of gathering and connectivity, which is why we're excited to introduce the Nonprofit Spotlight here on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL. The vibrant nonprofits of our community bring people together to find a sense of place and the importance of belonging. It is my pleasure to highlight Durham Academy Summer.
Hi, I'm Katie Kantz, Director of Durham Academy Summer. Durham Academy has provided premier summer camp experiences for Triangle triangle families since 1982. Our goal is to provide a summer experience for ages 4 through 18 that prepares kids for moral, happy, productive lives. In 2022, we hope you'll join us for DA Summer with an all-day inclusive camp experience for ages 4 through 13, fun and focused camps for older age groups, and a night camp option for evening adventures. DA Camp counselors host a wide array of activities reminiscent of classic overnight camps on 84 acres and in state-of-the-art facilities, with a schedule that's convenient for working parents. DA Summer is a nonprofit open to the community, and financial aid is available. Get a preview and register now at da.org/summer. Thanks, Trinsic Residential Group, for caring about the nonprofits of our community.
And thank you, Durham County Summer, for being one of the great nonprofits of our community. Find out more on chapelboro.com and learn more about Trinsic Residential Group at trinsicresidential.com.
I love you guys. I listen to you guys all the time.
This is 97.9 The Hill.
My station.
WCHL, where Carborough listens.
Coming to you straight from the heart of Chapel Hill in the 97.9 The Hill WCHL studios from the independent voice of UNC Sports, covering everything from Amos to Zwicker. This is Inside Carolina Live. And now the hosts of Inside Carolina Live, Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell.
What did y'all do? Welcome into Inside Carolina Live. This is Tommy Ashley, Joey Powell, Gregory Hall, Daniel Myrick. What would you do if I had a voice like that and I did the whole show in a voice like that?
Like the singing?
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be an employee of Inside Carolina.
I mean,
y'all can imitate one of the greats in Rafferty, but I can't sing like that.
It would be entertaining, but I don't know if I could do it for 2 hours once a week.
I don't know. Maybe we'll try it one day.
Let's go to the phones. How do
we do a post-game show? I have a segue. Let's bring in the coolest voice, Mr. Don Callahan.
Well, actually, pretty nice little Saturday. We're gonna go to Home Depot. Yeah, buy some wallpaper, maybe get some flooring, stuff like that. Maybe Bed Bath & Beyond. I don't know. I don't know if we'll have enough time.
Don Callahan, what's happening, my man?
I am so glad that I got this radio hit today, because it gives me a 5-10 minute break from the cleaning, all my chores for today. So I appreciate you guys having me on more than any other Saturday.
Well, it is a big honey-do list prior to the big day on Sunday. Let's get into the football recruiting. We are February 12th. We are a week after signing day that nobody cared about anymore because of early signing day. Give me a timeline on how it works for you covering football recruiting from now until, say, the camps start in the summertime.
So this month for me is it's literally a dead period, and it's an actual dead period because there's not a whole lot of movement because of the lack of visits. The class hasn't really kind of settled down at all. So this is more of just kind of touching base with a lot of the recruits. I'll go to a lot of 7-on-7s. Go to camps start up this month and continue all the way until really April and May. But then the visits really will amp up in March. UNC has at least one major junior day, probably two. Then we'll have another event later on in the spring, and then really it's just a lot of, you get the official visits start up in April, so that kind of you start to see, I guess, the recruits' cards, some of them who try to keep things secret. So, and then we head into the summertime where really, June really starts to heat up. I don't think June is going to be as crazy as it was last year. If you remember last year, June 1st was the first day that the dead period that had started because of the pandemic ended. So everybody was really excited about going on, visits, official visits, camps, all that sort of stuff. A lot of that stuff will be kind of out of most recruit systems by that point, but June's still going to be pretty important. But yeah, and as you guys know, by the end of June, we'll have a good grasp on what North Carolina's, at least the core of the class, will look like. I mean, they'll probably add a little bit more after that, but for the most part, by the end of June, a good amount of UNC's commitments will be committed.
Don, am I going?
No, you're not. I'm going.
Oh, sorry.
Don't fight, guys. Don't fight.
We all want to talk to Don. It's a big deal here. We're talking to Don Callahan on Inside Carolina Live. And Don is so good at what he does. He's the only guy I know that can watch 60 minutes in a half hour. Don, you've got to start seeing the invites the scholarship offers going out for this class. But I think the biggest thing that pertains to recruiting right now is that North Carolina has made official the addition of Patrick Suttis. What is your understanding of what his role is going to be with regard to recruiting, and how do you expect that he'll be helping Mack Brown and the staff?
Well, it's going to be very, very similar to Billy High. I think we'll have to see truly just how much it is similar, because I know that from what I've gathered, Billy was so involved with so many different aspects. There was a lot of, running around with your head cut off sort of thing in the football office during the month of January and this month until Suttis was hired. But so I think you're going to see some other people like Alex White and a couple other people take on more responsibilities that Billy had. But Suttis is going to be basically, as his title, the general manager, and he's going to oversee a lot of different things. He's going to have a major say on scholarship offers, on the transfer portal approach, on just basically, what a NFL general manager does as far as the roster assembling. He's going to have a major role in that, from visits to offers to whatever it may be. He's going to have a major say. Basically, be Mack Brown's right-hand man.
So is he going to be in charge of the, UNC's internal big board?
Well, yes. I mean, in charge. It's always a group effort, but he's going to be one of, the leading voices is probably the best way to put it. Mack obviously is going to have a say. They have a lot of the scouts that they have on staff are going to have a major say. Obviously, the position coaches, the coordinators are going to have a major say. But and it's always going to be a collective effort. There's not one or two people that are making decisions. A lot of once a recruit's film gets to the stage of potentially offering, everybody, it's a collective decision on whether to offer. But Pat's going to have a major voice in those decisions.
Don, I'm sitting here looking at the 24/7 Sports North Carolina 2023 football prospects page. And there's 15 guys listed in high choice, right? And only 2 of them are from the state. 3 of them are from the state of North Carolina, one of which is Tad Hudson, who is already committed to the Tar Heels. What have you seen from the in-state talent for this recruiting cycle, and is it impacting where UNC looks, as a lot of guys on this list that are up there are from Alabama, Georgia, and just other areas in the Southeast?
Yeah, so first, we don't, Inside Carolina doesn't maintain that list.
Right.
So it might not be the best source to look at, but I definitely understand your point is still valid, that your question, I guess I should say, is still valid. Yeah, I mean, I think, and I think we've talked about this before, is that the season didn't really help in certain aspects, and I think that the staff is going to have some extra work to do this off-season to get back on track. I also think that the new coaches that are on staff still have yet to kind of gain their footing. One of the interesting things is a whole lot of defensive back scholarship offers went out the past, month or so. And, if an offer was extended 2 weeks ago, it's hard to truly know where North Carolina stands with that recruit until he's able to visit campus, visit other schools, and you get an idea. So there's a lot of UNC still trying to get their footing, but with the guys that that the staff has been recruiting for a long time, yeah, there's not the buzz or the I guess optimism, if I've used that I feel when I'm talking. Like I spent last Sunday at the Carolina Stars 7-on-7 practice. For those who don't know, it's the top 7-on-7 team in the Carolinas. If you name a top player, a top skill player, most of them have played or play for the Carolina Stars. So we're talking about Christian Hamilton, Noah Rogers, Tad Hudson, all those guys. And just so I spent the afternoon with those guys and talking to them, and there's not the buzz that there was last year and the year before. So yeah, there is a lot of work that needs to be done with the in-state guys.
And you mentioned the season, how it's played out, but how would say like the development in year one of Travis Shaw, Zach Rice, some of these guys, these big name guys that have come to Carolina for the 22 class, seeing their development in year one, does that impact a recruiting cycle and how recruits see guys at their their talent level and how they progress in year one? Does that have any impact? Have you seen that before?
So on the current class, I don't think so. And the reason being, as I mentioned before, the large portion of UNC's class will be committed by the end of June.
Right.
The season doesn't begin until August, so it's hard for that to have any sort of impact. And then really, I think sometimes fans, they look at things obviously differently than these recruits, but they assume that the recruits are watching every single moment and paying attention to every single thing, and forgetting the fact that these are high school kids that have the attention span of a squirrel, and so they might not be paying so close attention to what's going on with Travis Shaw. But I mean, obviously, like I said, let's say for the next class, if like Grimsley High School has a bunch of younger recruits, 2024 recruits, even some 2025 recruits, they're going to definitely know if Travis Shaw played this season and how well Travis Shaw did. So those kids would definitely be impacted by what happens with him. Now, Jamal Jarrett, this class, I'd be shocked if he's not committed by the end of the summer. So Travis Shaw and those sort of guys aren't going to impact his situation too much.
Don, let me ask you one last question from my angle. We've talked about how the season aspect of it is sort of changed things for the recruiting purposes. What is the message? What have you seen how the message has shifted from Mack Brown and his staff when they're talking to these 22, 23 guys, 24 guys? Has it changed? And if it has changed, what is the message now? Because we know that when Mack first got here, it is hope, hope, hope. Here's where we're going. This is what we're going to do. Now they've got 3 seasons on tape. Has that message changed at all from Mack and staff?
Well, I think the general message is still hope. What we're going to be, sort of mentality. But then you also kind of have to answer, okay, there was a step back last year, and I think the answer to that is we were ahead of schedule. So it wasn't necessarily, or we were ahead of schedule in year one and year two. So it wasn't necessarily a step back. It was just kind of, I guess, a correction sort of thing. But we're still building something. You look at the prospects that we brought in. You look at the recruiting classes. That is one thing that recruits have mentioned a bunch is, well, look at what North Carolina has signed in the 22 class and in the 2021 class, and what they could be. So that sort of stuff does resonate and does kind of, I guess, allow them to look past what happened this past season. So it's the same, to kind of, I guess, sum up my answer. It's the same message, only you kind of have to fit it into a different sort of situation, if that makes sense.
It does, and folks that want to look at Don's recruiting board, you got to be Inside Carolina Premium subscriber, obviously, but Inside Carolina Football Recruiting Board on the Tar Pit Premium message board thread, it breaks down everything for the 2023 class and beyond, and before that, if you want to check it out. What you got, Joey?
Does it hurt y'all's head as much as it does mine when Don mentions things about like a 2025 recruiting class? In my mind, I just assume the world's not going to be here in 2025.
I'm glad I'm not the only one getting old.
Gosh knows. Don, we appreciate it, man. You always bring the flavor and the insight. Hopefully we can continue to talk to you if you are not buried in Shores land in the very near future. But appreciate you coming on with us in the middle of your Cinderella day, and we will talk at you sometime. Oh, no, Don, I'm being stopped by my co-host here.
Yeah, who you got in the Super Bowl, Don? And I'll caveat with I think the Rams, but I'm starting to like Joe Burrow more and more.
Joe Shiesty.
TikTok
Well,
is
yeah,
Burrow
the Joe
friendly.
Burrow has the storybook sort of, I guess, backing. But
so does Stafford.
I mean, as far as who I'm rooting for, or who do I think is going to win?
Both.
All right, I'll go with.
The Flyers aren't playing, Don.
And you cannot root for an AFC team, right?
So I think the Rams, and isn't it who the Simpsons picked also? So I think I don't care who wins either way. I know that I'm going to have plenty of different prop picks and that sort of thing. So I'll be rooting for Don on Sunday night.
Don,
boy.
Do you bet on the National Anthem?
Yes and no. It's more of like a complete prop sheet sort of thing. So yes, and I guess indirectly yes, but and the coin toss and all those other good things. It's all for the fun. It's not for
informational purposes only.
That's right. Not only just that, it's not. I'm not betting my house on the length of the National Anthem.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. Hopefully, your house will remain intact long after tomorrow's festivities. But Don Callahan, read his stuff, get his insight on InsideCarolina.com, and you can learn about Inside Carolina's football recruiting as well. We'll be right back after this break. You're listening to Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
Metal braces aren't your only option anymore. I'm Dr. Kervin Mack with Mack Orthodontics. We offer innovative orthodontics for children and adults. Our diverse services include braces for kids, retainers, clear and invisible braces, surgical orthodontics, and more. We use the most current technique and technology in orthodontics, promising stunning smiles throughout the Burlington and Orange County areas. Start loving your smile.
Make an appointment today at mackortho.com. Accepts most insurance, partial payments, and offers flexible hours.
Hey, Jack.
Hey, Lee.
I love engagement season.
That's funny, because at Almost Jewelers, it's always engagement season.
People find us year-round, since we have the largest selection of bridal jewelry in the area.
And the designs from Gnome Carver this season are incredible.
The bold vintage florals have a classic elegance, and the timeless solitaires make a lasting impression.
I guess I love engagement season too, Lee.
Olmos Jewelers in Eastgate Crossing is the place for bridal jewelry in Chapel Hill. Olmos Jewelers. The name means diamonds. Let's engage. Online at olmosjewelers.com.
Come meet us at the new Flying Biscuit Cafe, located in University Place next to Silver Spot Cinema. We have a 25-year history of serving the South flavorful comfort food. Join us for Chapel Hill's best shrimp and grits, biscuits with cranberry apple butter, creamy, dreamy grits, and many more regionally inspired dishes. Bring the whole family. There's something for everyone on our extensive menu. We serve breakfast, brunch, and lunch all day with a Southern twist. Flying Biscuit Cafe, now open. Visit us at flyingbiscuit.com.
The new KO2 just landed at your local BF Goodrich dealer. With technology designed to conquer the harshest terrain on Earth, the KO2 is BF Goodrich's toughest all-terrain tire ever. And now, that Baja-born toughness is ready for you. Whether you're at work or at play, take on your toughest off-road challenge with confidence. The new BF Goodrich all-terrain TA KO2. Get yours today. Shop BF Goodrich at chapelhilltire.com or visit any of their 9 area locations. And remember, drive happy, Chapel Hill.
Hello, this is Tony Hall, real estate broker at Tony Hall & Associates. After years of declining, the inventory of homes for sale is expected to rebound this year. If you're considering selling your home to move up or downsize, this may be your moment, especially with today's low mortgage rates. Let our experienced realtors help you. At Tony Hall & Associates, we don't just list houses, we sell them.
I'm Jim McNeely from Surf Pro of South Durham and Orange County. It's the season of love, and our staff is working harder than ever to serve the community we love. Like our Random Acts of Kindness program, where we celebrate the season by delivering lunch to our first responders, letters to nursing homes, care packages to teachers, and more. Follow us at surfprosouth.durham.com or on Facebook to feel the love and to join our celebration of incredible people of color here in our community in honor of Black History Month.
You're listening to Inside Carolina Live with Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports.
Inside Carolina Live. Saturday morning, getting you up, ready, set for your day. Tar Heels hosting Florida State basketball Seminoles at 2 p.m. today. For those of you who care, I've seen that line has now been bet up to 9, and looks like the total's sitting around 145. If that sort of information is important to you. But we
because Greg took him at 8.5, so everyone started.
Yeah, it's
jumping on.
A lot of sharps moved in after that, right? Like as soon as they heard Greg Barnes' call, everybody loaded up, and Vegas's phones have been tied up. But speaking on our phones, we've got a legendary Tar Heel basketball alum who had a huge role in one of the biggest North Carolina-Florida State basketball games in the history of either program. Mr. George Lynch, North Carolina's all-time steals leader, and I'm pretty sure you still hold that title. George, how are you?
I'm doing great, but my teammate took it from me, man, the year after, Derek Fell.
Oh, dang it. Well, that's
well-deserved, man, well-deserved.
For the purposes of this show, we're just going to assume you still hold that. But, George, Tar Heels hosting Florida State today. How much of this North Carolina team have you been able to watch, and what are your impressions of them?
I've been able to catch a few games, and it's been a challenge for all college coaches, including Coach Davis with, dealing with COVID issues, the transfer portal, kids leaving and coming. It's tough for a first-year coach trying to pull a group of guys who probably, until their first game this year have never played, the starting lineup. Has never played a college basketball game together. So, there's been, me watching from my perspective, chemistry, how guys are going to accept each other's roles, making the adjustment with new starting lineups from the guys who return into the new guys joining the team. So it's been a battle for the players and Coach Davis.
Well, and we're talking with George Lynch, who, most importantly, is my mother's favorite Tar Heel of all time. George, when I think about your playing career, a lot of times you were matched up with guys that are bigger than you were just because of the way the game was, but also, more importantly, what your skill set was and how good you were able to defend guys. When we see a guy like Leaky Black, who has to, most of the time, defend the other team's best player, what sorts of things is he setting through his mind? What sorts of things is he telling himself before he has to go match up in situations like that? What were the things that you went through in your head, and what kind of things do you think Leaky's probably thinking as well?
I had a conversation with Leaky around the first practice I was able to watch, and I told him for this team to be successful, he has to accept that role. And with college players today, high school kids, I got a son that's a sophomore. It's hard to get kids to buy into defense. The great Coach Steve Smith told me I could be the best player on the floor without shooting a basketball, and I took a lot of pride in that. And it also helped me accept the role and help our team win a lot of games while I was there my 4 years.
George, Tommy Ashley here, fellow 93 graduate. When you look at this team, everybody talks about the leadership that George Lynch brought when he was at Carolina. Watching from afar now, close but still from afar, how has it been for you and other former teammates to see how this team sort of struggled with that aspect of the game, especially early in the season, to having that defined leader, that guy that steps up, that guy that always brings it, kind of like you did when you were in Chapel Hill?
It's tough. A lot of it because of the way the game has been played. a lot of the kids, and I'm not saying any of these kids on this team, when they play, a lot of times AAU is about featuring themselves. A lot of, and less is more about let's feature the team and the name on the front of the jersey. So it's hard for kids to buy into it. And I'm sure Coach Davis and the coaching staff is preaching it. If the team have success, we all have success. And that's what the team has to buy into. But it takes, I remember my first year at Carolina, we lost, 12, 15, 16 games. So these guys have to go through some tough times to build team camaraderie, and then a captain or a leader will emerge from that. And they just haven't had the time, I think, to go through the ups and downs, the wins and losses, that teams in the past have went through.
Let's turn to this game against Florida State today. Clearly, everybody still talks about the 93 game that you guys amazingly came back. But how bad did Sam Cassell's comments, I believe it was the year before, piss you guys off when talking about your home court?
Well, it wasn't just Sam Cassell's comments. Florida State was an athletic team, and they're an athletic team this year. And for some reason, we just put pressure on ourselves, trying to beat them. And it became, more about beating Florida State than more about us playing our game. And, Coach Smith, it was weird because, Coach Smith tried to take as much pressure off the players, but for some reason, every time we matched up to Florida State, it was hard for us to relax as a team. I remember, during that timeout, one of the timeouts, Coach Smith was like, look, let's just get this down to 10. I'm going to call a timeout, and we'll go from there. We got it down to under 10. He called the timeout. And he said, and the only thing he says in the huddle is, look at their bench. And we all looked at their bench, and they down there fussing and arguing. It looked like coaches had some choice words, and Coach Smith said, all right, let's go back out there and play. And at that moment, I think the pressure was relieved, and we were able to finish the game and go on with the win. But it was just one of those teams that, yes, Sam Cassell said what he said. Yes, it was part of the bulletin board material, but we figured if we were going to win a national championship, we had to get through Florida State.
We're speaking with 1993 national champion George Lynch here. George, this is Gregory Hall. I'm just curious your thoughts on Brady Manning so far this season, coming in as a transfer and just feels like he's fully embraced what Carolina basketball is about. Just your thoughts on him playing that stretch four position and just his work ethic and what he's done for UNC this season.
He's definitely, it goes back to older player with experience. I'm sure he's won a lot of games. He's lost a lot of games. He's played in big games. And he's that common, mature veteran. Maybe he could be a little bit more vocal, and that would help the team. But he's doing a great job. I think he's a hell of a player. He's definitely what Coach Davis and the coaching staff needs. He's been that, like you said, that stretch four who we can really depend on to hit a shot. And he's done it his entire career and it has embraced his role at Carolina amongst some of the best players.
And then how different are these final weeks compared to the rest of the season as things start to really focus on the tournament and the ACC tournament, and just as the regular season wraps up? How different is it as a player than maybe some of the earlier parts of the season where you're trying to figure out the team identity and things like that?
Well, once it gets closer to tournament time, everyone seems to focus in a little bit. The guys know there's not a lot of games left to get your act together. The coaching staff is trying to identify how we play. And, and guys, by them focusing, hopefully the lineup was shortened. He probably would, take the lineup down to 6, 7, 8 guys maybe, max. And guys will be more comfortable once they know when they're going in the game, what their role is, and then you start to see teams, especially in a tournament that doesn't see you play all the time, and that's where it helps.
We're talking with George Lynch, North Carolina basketball national champion in '93. Played a long career in the NBA, but also was in the foxhole a lot with current Tar Heel coach Hubert Davis. George, what are some things that you think you remember about Hubert as a player and a teammate that he might be able to translate towards these players right now as they come down the stretch in his first season as head coach?
Well, I know they wish, and all Tar Heel fans wish he could go out there and shoot a jump shot for them. But
facts.
He's definitely going to bring that. He's competitive. He's just as competitive. He left his blood, sweat, and tears on the court, just like any other former player. Hopefully the guys will listen to the staff in the film room and prepare themselves to go out and execute the game plan that Coach Davis is providing for them.
George, a question here from our listeners, viewers here. Do you see any similarities in the coaching style between Hubert and Dean Smith?
Man, Dean Smith did it for a long time. I'm sure, the same philosophy as any other, Coach Guthridge, Roy Williams, Coach Doherty, playing together, play hard, play smart. That was the staple. And I think, the current team just needs to make sure that they're playing together, playing smart, not rushing themselves, but play hard, but within themselves, and not try to be a hero. There's going to be times where, Leaky is going to hit a shot for us, which he's done the last few games. There's going to be times that R.J. Davis and Love is going to make plays, but allow the game to come. Don't force the issue, and everybody's on the same page defensively. I think that's how they're going to advance in the tournament and further their season. For hopefully we can get to the NCAA Final Four and make a big push. But just play within yourself. Don't try to be a hero.
George, we appreciate it, man. Thanks for making some time with us on a Saturday. I know Tar Heel Nation loves to hear from you, and we like to check in with you, too. So we appreciate you making time for us, and we hope to talk to you sometime very soon.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, that's George Lynch, Tar Heel national champion on the 93 squad, played with Hubert Davis. Now we're going to switch over to our awesome IC Takeover segment, which Gregory Hall has some questions, I'm hoping, so that we can give somebody a Johnny T-shirt gift card. But while we're getting ready for that, and while Gregory's kind of pulling out his list of potential contenders today, I want to make sure we give Johnny T-shirt the love they deserve. Check them out if you're in town today for the ball game. Look, it's 11:30. You got 2.5 hours before tip-off. Go buy Johnny T-shirt right there on East Franklin. Get you some gear. Show up to the Smith Center looking right. Have you a good fit. Be clean. That way when you show up on social media or you're telling your friends you went to the game, you look like you feel, right? And then hopefully, if you're looking good and feeling good, then maybe you'll get to see a Tar Heel win today. All right. Shout out to Johnny T-shirt. Winner of this IC Takeover segment will get a $50 Johnny T-shirt gift card. Gregory, it's all yours.
All right. Let's start with Californication on YouTube.
Great album, by the way.
I was thinking of the
TV
series.
show?
Yeah,
That's a good one.
It's hilarious.
Does Virginia's win at Duke change our, referencing us three, and I think kind of what we talked about on the beat and other things, priors about UNC's chances in Cameron? Does it open the door a little bit? Duke doesn't seem to play much better at home this year than on the road. And I think it's a valid question.
It's a valid question, but I'm going to give you a two-letter answer. No.
Next question.
I mean, look, can Carolina beat Duke? Yes. Was their best chance to do it in the Smith Center not the last game of a coach's career in their home court?
Also, yes.
Is there a chance Carolina could win in Cameron on March 5th? Yes. How big is that chance? Not very.
It's slim and none, and Slim just got on the bus.
Yeah. It would, like Greg Barnes likes to say, it would be up there with the most epic win in Carolina basketball history. And that includes the championship games, given the nature of the rivalry and who the last coach is, who's the coach that's coaching his last game.
The reason why it doesn't really change my perspective is because, yes, Duke is vulnerable, but that's what we talked about going in to the last game. But what it comes down to are the mismatches that Duke has over Carolina. Leaky Black cannot guard two guys. Yep. He locked down Banchero. A.J. Griffin went off. And you look at that Virginia game, Virginia played really good defense across the board on Duke, and Duke did not shoot the ball well.
And they have the athletes to match up with Duke.
Right. It's just like, yes, UNC destroyed Virginia, but the way that UNC played Virginia is not the same way that they can play or totally guard different. Duke.
Absolutely.
So it's just, whether it's home or away, neutral court, I mean, I thought Duke was vulnerable and susceptible going in, so no, it doesn't really change my perspective, although I do understand where the question is coming from. But it's just, did you guys see one of the CBS, I don't remember who it was, but they put out their like field of 68 and whatnot in the East region, Duke a 3 seed and UNC an 11 seed for a
Duke, UNC
second round, and then Kentucky was the 2 seed. I was like, this man chose.
That was Mike DeCourcy.
He woke up and chose But no, to answer your question, it doesn't change my perspective.
Well, the best part was they had UNC UConn in the first round, or I'm sorry, the round of 64, and then the winners would have been either either UNC or UConn playing Duke in the round of 32. Yeah.
There could be some weird stuff going on in the tournament given the nature of this net and all that kind of stuff. But
also true.
They're not going to match Duke and Carolina up in any time outside of the Final Four.
I will say this. I have beat this drum a couple of times this year, but I've watched a lot of Big East basketball, mainly because they play on Friday nights, and it's a good night to just lock in with nothing else going on, and I'm not distracted by work. And there are a lot of really, really not good, talented teams in the Big East, but teams that complement each other really well. And I think that's going to be tough come tournament time. If North Carolina comes up against one of these teams that has, a roster that goes a real 7 or 8 deep,
like a Providence,
like a Xavier, like a Seton Hall, that they've got athletes, but more importantly, and I've said it 1,000 times, they got dudes. So I've been really entertained by that, and I think that's when I see UNC matched up against an hypothetical against UConn, that's like hard pass. But whatever, it's you got to play who's across from you. Next question.
All right, let's go to Horace Wangmonger on Twitter. If I butchered your last name, Horace, I apologize. He's very active on the boards and everything. If you could add one player from the last 5 seasons, so going back to the 2017 national title team to this team, who would we select and why do we feel they would make the largest difference on this year's team?
Go back, from which team?
17.
No, not just 17. Any of the last 5 years. You pick one player to put on this team, who you put in, and why?
Justin Jackson.
Okay.
Just because he was an absolute threat on offense all the time, and it wasn't just from deep. He could hit that mid-range floater. He was a matchup nightmare because he was 6'9", but also by the time he left here, he was a really good defender. And so I think if you can take that guy right now, plug him in with this roster, it absolutely changes their game offensively. It gives you another guy that can hit a knockdown shot, but it really gives you another ball stopper on defense.
Give me Nasir Little.
Are you answering your own questions?
I wouldn't.
He's been watching.
If I'm going to
videos
pick a guy like that, I'm going to
Yeah.
pick Theo Pinson.
I want someone more physical. With Dawson out, I want someone more physical who can spell Brady. And I think Nasir Little is the best player for that.
I don't necessarily disagree. I just don't know if he
didn't see that.
This
North
team
Carolina.
needs Joel Berry. This team could use a Joel Berry. This team could use another big to complement Baycott and Manick, sure. But I don't know. I mean, the J-Jacks pick is pretty good. Cam Johnson would be
Same
nice.
mold.
Oh, okay. Same type of, yeah.
But I think this team's biggest thing is they need, y'all know what I think about tough guys. I mean, Joe Barry was that guy. He's the enforcer on the perimeter. And I like Theo Pinson the way he could do it all, which, Leaky could be that type person, but they're vastly different personalities there.
Theo also had kind of that, he had a little bit of a streak in him that he was not afraid to take a big shot. And I think that's something that is always good to have in a glue guy. I don't think Leaky has that, and that's okay. That's just not who he is.
Sure.
Theo was one, especially when he was younger, that streak would have him taking dumb shots, but by the time he left here, he was a guy that you want having taken those shots because he could make it absolutely a kill shot, which is big time.
I think if I had to pick a backcourt guy, it would be either Joel Berry or Kenny Williams. But Nas is still my answer.
Kenny's interesting because he was real steady.
I mean,
exactly.
We can go Kobe White,
That's fair. But
I'm still mad that we only got to see 1 year of Kobe White, by the way.
Yeah, there needs to be a veteran in the backcourt, in my opinion, and I think Kenny Williams or Joel Berry would be great. All right, next question. Brian Evans on YouTube. Can a player be just a great game day player and not as good of a practice player and vice versa? I think he's pointing to the Styles and McCoy here. I think it's, 100%.
I mean, it's possible, but you better have full trust of your coach, and I don't think you're going to get that from a freshman and a first-year coach. Darian Durant, Carolina football player, was notoriously not a practice player, but he balled out in games.
Sure.
And he had to trust to do it, and they had to have it, and he proved it repeatedly. I don't think you can come in as a freshman, if we're talking about Styles or Dunn or any freshman, and not be a good practice player and expect to play.
I think a really good example of being a good practice player and not necessarily the best game day player was Andrew Platek.
That's the exact opposite, though, of what he's asking for.
I know. Well, he said and vice versa. And he's just Andrew Platek would throw up bricks in games, and Roy would defend him and be like, look, I know they can go in. I've seen him go in. He's our best shooter. He just, for some reason, they're not going in. So, yes, I think it's possible. But to your point, Tommy, I like that point about if you're a freshman, you don't have as much trust. But if you've seen it and you just maybe have an off week or an off few weeks and you're just not getting in practice, some other things could be going on.
And sometimes the lights shine bright and guys wilt a little bit and don't do it in games.
Or they step up and they need that pressure.
Yeah, I mean, but you combine a freshman and that aspect of it.
It's hard to make that transition, man. I agree with Tommy. It's just the game is so different now, even than it was 5 years ago, that just expecting a freshman to not be able to get it in practice and be able to do it in a game, that's. And the football analogy is a good one, but there's so many other players around you that can kind of hide you when you're one of 5 guys on the court and you're responsible for 20% of the play. That's hard to do.
Yeah, and do not mistake me saying that Styles is a bad practice player. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying in general.
Right.
Guys in that position, I think you have to come in and do it in practice. You can do it in the summertime, and it doesn't translate to playing time in thing like we've heard about. Justin McCoy has been debated about how great he looked to certain people in the summertime and all that stuff. So I think you got to be able to do it in both, especially in college basketball, to Joey's point, because you can't throw some guy out there that goes off in practice every day and never does it in the games and then shows up only for games. It's kind of like, the hired ringer for rec basketball.
Right.
You never see the guy and he shows up on game day and torches it. It's not like that. It doesn't work that way.
Give me one more question. We'll wrap the segment.
All right, this is from Will Clayton on Twitter. If you had to choose one football player and one basketball player to become a dual sport athlete, so a basketball player to play football and a football player to be on the basketball team, who would you want on each team?
Right now?
Yeah. A current football athlete that you would also want on the basketball team, and a current basketball athlete that you would also want on the football team.
Well, Drake May can play basketball. I mean,
is his game like his brother's?
I think he can play. I think he was pretty good in high school. And then on the other way around, I think McCoy could be a dude.
He's got a tight end body.
He could be a linebacker for sure.
He's got a tight end, but I think he's too tall for a linebacker. But he's definitely got a tight end frame on him.
He could play edge or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously everybody knows it's going to say, if you look over the years, it's Peppers, and Ronald Curry.
Yeah,
give me
R.J.
Davis as a corner.
Teams, though.
Give me R.J. Davis as a corner.
Oh, I like
He's
that.
He's fast
actually.
enough. He's got quick enough hips. I think he could be a decent defensive back.
That's a good one.
For football, transitioning the other way.
All those guys think they can play.
Yeah. Well,
all you got to do is go to Woolen.
Yeah, I was going to say go to Woolen,
or at least you used to be able to. I don't know where they play now.
I think
I want JQ on the back.
I was getting ready to say, I think any of the safeties, I would imagine if he could shoot a guy like what's it Gray, Cedric Gray. I want to call him Caleb Gray. Cedric Gray, I imagine, would be a difficult guard.
That's a
like
good one.
If you were trying to match up on him, I imagine he'd be a handful.
That's a good one.
So just thinking about body size or whatever, he's one of those where if he wanted to post you like old Mark Jackson could and back you down 20 feet from the basket, he could. And if he could shoot it all, he's gonna be able to get his shot.
I think I would want Caleb at wideout. And then JQ on the basketball team.
The thing about football is it's a different animal, right?
Yeah.
And
obviously,
yeah. But the transition, I mean, is Caleb physical enough to make that transition?
Put him out there to make a go route.
His height, though.
Yeah, let him go run a go route.
I think he would. I think he could be solid.
Yeah, I mean.
Leaky's not quick enough for us. I would have picked a 6'8" Leaky.
No, and he's too slight.
Right.
It's an interesting discussion, but
I love it.
One thing about, and I mentioned Ronald Curry. I guess he was right at the time you were born. That dude.
God, and it hurts.
That guy was unbelievable in high school and. In high school basketball and football, anybody that saw him, I mean, Bobby Bowden famously said, he was one of the greatest quarterbacks he's ever seen. But football ruined his body for basketball.
Yeah.
Which is why someone asked why Keyshawn Silver didn't play basketball, and I think that's part of it.
I remember
I think he could stand to lose the weight to slim down and then build back up for basketball. Ronald Curry's issue is that football bulked him up too much to be effective as a guard in basketball.
I just want to point out that I had on this show where I said, just because Keyshawn Silver said he wants to play basketball, that he was going to play on this team, and I said, there's no way it happens, and I got roasted by some listeners back and forth just saying, well, he says he wants to and coach says he'll let him. Anyway, all right, so we're going to pick our winner from this segment of IC Takeover during the break. We'll be right back to wrap the show. Tommy has just absolutely brought his A game today. Gregory is also here, and Daniel has been keeping us in line, but we'll be right back after this break for the last segment of Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
When Andy Dufresne escaped from Shawshank with all of the warden's money, just where do you think he went? Well, yes, he went to Mexico, but first he had to go see John Stillman at Rosewood Wealth Management. And if you want your money to last, you should go see John, too.
Shawshank Redemption is a fictional story, and Ellis Redding isn't real. However, Carolina Wealth Stewards, doing business as Rosewood Wealth Management, is in fact a real registered investment advisor with the state of North Carolina.
Hello, I'm Holly Fricaro, CEO of the Home Builders Association of Durham, Orange, and Chatham counties. This is the Home Builders Minute, where I interview one of our members every month about their expertise in the current housing market. My guest this month is Stephen Kim, Senior Managing Director and Head of Evercore ISI's Housing Research Team. Mr. Kim's work focuses on national housing demographics and emerging trends across both the new and resale housing markets. Tell me how you got into housing research.
I was a graduate of the Wharton School. The fellow who ultimately hired me was also a graduate, and he was looking for somebody that he could sort of take under his wing, and he basically taught me whatever I needed to know about housing and home building. In fact, the home building models that I use today, I actually built with him. Housing research from a sell-side analyst perspective is all designed to help a professional investor make good investment decisions. They can choose to ignore what we say, but essentially we are an inch wide wide and a mile deep in the financials, in the industry. Our clients are professional investors, folks who would manage money, hedge funds, mutual funds, pension funds, and they tend to be a mile wide and an inch deep. They cover many sectors. So they rely on folks like me who tend to be very nerdy about a very specific sector to help them make better decisions.
Thanks for joining us on the Home Builders Minute, keeping us informed about the building and buying of new homes. Tune in weekly for this show, which is also archived under the Town Square tab of chapelboro.com and on hbadoc.com.
This is Jeff Rubish of High and Rubish Insurance Agency. Did you know being prepared with a list of qualified home repair professionals could save you time and money when you face it with an emergency situation? Know now who you would call if you needed a plumber, a roofer, an electrician, and of course knowing how to get in touch with your insurance agent. Call my office at High and Rubish Insurance at 919-913-1144. We can help you with this list and access your insurance needs as well. This is Jeff Rubish. Did you know?
Metal braces aren't your only option anymore. I'm Dr. Kervin Mack with Mack Orthodontics. We offer innovative orthodontics for children and adults. Our diverse services include braces for kids, retainers, clear and invisible braces, surgical orthodontics, and more. We use the most current technique and technology in orthodontics, promising stunning smiles throughout the Burlington and Orange County areas. Start loving your smile.
Make an appointment today at mackortho.com. Accepts most insurance, partial payments, and offers flexible hours.
You're listening to Inside Carolina Live with Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports.
Something happening here.
See, I know
what it is.
Who sings it?
I couldn't tell you that.
Buffalo Springfield.
But I know the song.
See, if we have a contest on who sings what, but I'll karaoke with the best of them.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
Something country.
Yeah.
Because I can
always Waylon Jennings action?
Nah, Dad, I don't do the hillbilly country.
That's outlaw country.
That's disrespectful.
Yeah, hillbilly country. All right. The guy from Clayton making fun of hillbillies. That's a new one.
I didn't say. I just said I don't do hillbilly country.
He's so standoffish about hillbilly country. Oh man, it's been a good show today, boys. I appreciate you guys making things happen and being flexible. Who's our winner, Gregory?
Will Clayton. With the football basketball crossover question. I love thought-provoking. Get our
That is a good barbershop barroom discussion, water cooler type discussion.
You could take that question over to He's Not Right Now and just get the people going, as Will Ferrell would say.
Get the people going. All right, well, all right, boys.
Shout out Will Clayton.
Ball game at 2:00. Tar Heels, Seminoles. We've kind of talked it to death. Tommy, give me the one thing that North Carolina has to do if they want to come away with a win today.
They got to hit shots because Florida State, even in their depleted selves, are going to be physical inside. And they're going to need to hit outside shots. And I mean, we could literally, at this point in the show, press play.
You got a shooting percentage in mind?
48.
Okay.
That's what UNC needs to shoot?
If they shoot in the 30s, I think Florida State's got a chance to beat them.
Well yeah.
Well, I mean,
that's
you just
anybody.
No, it's not. Carolina won the other day shooting 25%.
They beat Boston College shooting under 30%.
They beat Boston College. Listen to yourselves.
Okay.
Boston College hadn't lost 5 in a row.
And they have now.
I don't even want to get into
Carolina needs to be physical without fouling. They need to hit shots, which is pretty much the same.
That's been the recipe. I'm with you.
Recipe all season for this team.
They don't have a big margin for error, so
also
no. And I'll tell you who I like for Florida State is I like what's his name Zero Raekwon Evans. I mean that guy. I like his game. I always have liked his game, and he's one that does not need to get going, and they just need to. They play well at home, except for one game. They just need to do what they do. I think George Lynch said, just do what they do and not get silly and go off the lane, go out of their lane too much. And I think they'll be fine. I'm not as sold as Greg Barnes is on them basically running Florida State out of the building.
Greg Barnes out here betting mortgages.
Yeah, but I mean, the problem is Florida State will rebound the basketball. So if Carolina's going to shoot poorly, they're going to leave Florida State in it. And I do like Leonard Hamilton as coach.
Bunny Ham. Tom, you sound like me. I always feel like there's a guy on Florida State's roster that I love, and I love Caleb Mills. I love big guards that have NBA talent. I think Caleb Mills has that. He's definitely quick. He's shifty. And Caleb Love's going to have is going to have fun guarding him today. I think he's going to have his hands full. Gregory, how are you feeling, man? What's lowercase G with the Porter and the big jet? What's your feeling this game?
I think it comes down to rebounding and battle on the boards, because if UNC succeeds that to Florida State, it's going to not necessarily hurt UNC as much as it's going to help Florida State and allow Florida State to kind of make up for some other areas where UNC has a significant advantage. So I think it really comes down to that, and that role goes on Armando mainly. But then, Armando pointed out against Clemson, Dontrez came in at the end of the first half and was a really good rebounder. So it could be another similar situation where he comes in for a few minutes when UNC needs some rebounds, and his job is just go fly and grab the ball because he was good at it. And so that's kind of where my head's leaning towards as far as what UNC needs to do to prevent FSU from kind of getting into a rhythm. And that's crash the boards more so than in the past, mainly as much on the defensive end as they've maybe more than they have this season is kind of where I'm going at.
Daniel, you got no coffee, but I'll give you a chance to give a quick synopsis of what needs to happen for the game today.
Well, I'm thinking about how big Florida State is. Like Tommy said earlier, I really think it's important that we get our shots off and we make them. And also, I'm tired. I don't want to see any turnovers. I think against Clemson, we had 8 turnovers in the first half. So I think if we can hold on to the ball and make our outside shots, I think we have a good chance.
Well, all of those things, I think you guys make some great points. Again, the height and the physicality that Florida State's going to bring is going to be, I think, the biggest bugaboo. They're going to run bodies at you. They're going to have athletes at different points of the floor. Now, granted, they may not be their first-string athletes. They may not be the athletes that Leonard Hamilton would typically bring to a war like this, but they're going to have athletes. So it's going to be incumbent upon North Carolina to, like Tommy said, hit your shots, execute. I would love to see this team come out again with a good start. I mean, I know that they've come back from games where they have not started well, but I don't think that they've won any games where they. I don't think that they have. I think all of their losses they have started poorly. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So some of their games they've come back in after a bad start, like they did against Clemson. But I do know that the games that they got boat raced in, they absolutely did not start well. So go ahead.
Let me tease post game. I'll be in the building in Smith Center and on Franklin Street before and after if any inside Carolina people are around. But John Siegley, and if the flights land on time, Dewey Burke will have no post game today. Joey with Coast to Coast podcast at first of next week, and we'll also have the first full Players Lounge podcast should be dropping on Tuesday. That's on the football side of things, but folks will be interested in hearing that. And of course, Gregory Hall and I will be back on the Beat Live on Thursday night.
I just want it to be known that I will be returning from my San Diego trip just in time for On the Beats, just so Tommy doesn't have to go live.
Well, that
Lord willing, and the planes land on time.
Yes, that solves the biggest to-do this week. So
that won't be an issue for Mr. Tommy Ashley.
We need to make sure Gregory gets home on time because it's not live if Gregory Hall is not a part of it.
All right, boys. Well, we appreciate everybody listening today. Thanks to George Lynch, to Greg Barnes, to Don Callahan, to Tommy Ashley, No Coffee Daniel, Gregory Hall. Gregory, have a safe trip. I'm Joey Powell. This has been Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
I'm Jeremy Salemson with CIMG Residential Mortgage. You've no